why am I doing all this work? Oh, to get love from someone else. I'm performing for love. There's been sort of a integrity and authenticity, if you will, that I've always sort of tapped into. And it took me a long time to understand my relationship with my self-care and how I wanted it to come from a place of authentically loving and caring for myself versus performing for love. What I've noticed about women in particular is that we will spend money and time and energy helping other people, but we don't do it for ourselves until we have a disease or cancer, or we're getting divorced, or we're looking at making a major change. And, it's like, at what point do we value ourselves at a level that asks us to commit differently? So when I see someone who you can tell has not treated their body well, has not attended to themselves in a real, meaningful, deep kind of way, it makes people cranky because they don't know how to shift and change and grow and evolve and expand. But it doesn't have to be like that. The attention to ourselves is a form of love.
Welcome to another episode of the Mental Health Break podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Nafisa Sikandri. Today, I'm excited to interview JJ Flizanes. Let me introduce her before we get started. JJ is an empowerment strategist and the host of several podcasts, including People's Choice Awards nominee Spirit, Purpose, and Energy. JJ Flizanes works with conscious spiritual truth seekers who want to remove emotional blocks to success. She helps people identify sabotaging patterns and transmute struggle into joy. Through a series of clarifying exercises, she's able to curate a personalized roadmap to emotional healing. JJ is passionate about empowering people with the knowledge and awareness of how they can live the life of their dreams. Hi, JJ. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Nafisa. Thank you for having me.
I'm excited to talk to you because, as many of my listeners know, I started the Happiness Project, and every month I'm having a different theme. And February's theme is all about relationships. And I know that you talk a lot about relationships, not only with yourself, but with food and with God. So I thought this was a perfect opportunity for me to talk to you a little bit about, first of all, focusing on self-love. But before we get started on any of that, I want you to tell us a little bit about I know I introduced you, but just a little bit about who you are, how did you get started, and how did your business just transform from one topic to so many different topics that you're talking about now?
Well, I don't actually see it, even though I know it looks like it's a million different topics. To me, it all centers on happiness and self-love and self-care. I had to dumb it down for a neighbor once, 80-year-old or maybe 90-year-old neighbor who I had met. And he said, "What do you do?" And I said, I thought, this guy, I can't explain all the nuances of what I do. How do I make this really simple? I said, "I teach people how to be happy." He said, "Oh, are you a therapist?" And I said, "No, I'm a coach." So I started out as just a curious kid. I've taken a few tests, but sort of equal left brain, right brain. And I always am interested in the human behavior. Like, why do we do what we do? Why do I look at the world the way that I do? I have been interested in astrology. I studied acting. So actually, there's no better way if you are in a good acting program, because if it's good, it means you have to go into the mindset of, how is this character different than me? There are some acting methods that want you to just be you, which I don't agree with, because all characters aren't me. I've never lived in the 1940s. I don't know what that's like. But to actually embody another persona takes a bit of a stretch into what it must be like to think differently, to walk differently, to act differently, to feel differently, how the environments are different. So I always really loved the craft of acting for that reason, of being able to try on a new set of circumstances to see how I would respond, or how one would respond, to create compassion and understanding. So from actress to personal trainer to business owner to podcaster, as working with people physically with their physical bodies, I just saw the trend of, I have a deep reverence, probably because I grew up in a house where my mother doesn't. She doesn't love herself or care for herself in a way that I think is optimal, right? Because when we have wounds of self-worth from our parents, and our parents don't value us, or we interpret that as children, then we also then don't value us, and we don't take care of our bodies, and we don't do things for longevity reasons. So put that all together, and I've learned by example sort of the opposite example of what to do differently and how I wanted her to love and respect herself more. So asking the questions from the place of personal training, it's never been really about what it always looks like on the outside. I mean, that's part of it, of course, but it really is how I feel on the inside. And I had many clients that would range from people who were doing their workouts because of being accepted by other people, which I never felt good about that. I didn't like that. I questioned that. Why am I doing all this work? Oh, to get love from someone else. I'm performing for love. There's been sort of a integrity and authenticity, if you will, that I've always sort of tapped into. And it took me a long time until I wrote my first book to understand my relationship with my self-care and how I wanted it to come from a place of authentically loving and caring for myself versus performing for love. And so I also had clients that had back pain or neck pain or shoulder pain. And if we look at all the scientific ways to deal with the body, maybe their body was fine. They had their joints in place. They had muscular balance. Okay, so now what's causing the pain? And so looking underneath the hood, if you will, a little bit, and finding out other factors that create pain, chronic pain, like for instance, back pain. Chronic back pain is normally not a physical issue. Even if you've had x-rays that say you have a bulging disc and a pinched nerve, I promise you, if it's a chronic pain that's been going on for years, it is repressed rage. Dr. John Sarno wrote about it in Healing Back Pain. He did mind body prescription. He was a physician who did back surgeries for 30 years in New York and came out saying that this is not a physical issue. Yes, your pain is real. It's not mental, but it is real. So looking at, all right, well, I used all the physical tools of the body. What else could contribute to this pain or not healing? And of course, that led to all the emotional pieces, which I was already interested in. So put that all together, and I have come out the other side of now I'm specializing in rewiring core wound patterns because I want to find the fastest, deepest way to make change, to understand patterns, and to rewire the patterns and the beliefs that we were ingrained with, that we didn't choose, that were subconscious, that our brains just made sense of because we're trying to survive and get connection between the ages of 0 and 7. And then throughout the rest of our lives, because the patterns that I see that people do is that they'll go to therapy or they'll invest in some kind of life coaching, and they'll deal with surface level things. They'll deal with what's happening right now in my relationship, what's happening right now in my life, and who are these players that are upsetting me. And we never get to the actual root cause, because most of I'm sure you understand and agree, most of the things that happen to us now have nothing to do with now. They're a reflection of how we see ourselves in the world, and they come from wounds that were put there before we were conscious enough to decide them. And to me, that has become a passion that I focus on now, because I see a lot of people waste a lot of time in therapies that don't work, and they come out the other side as if they should be healed because they've talked about it for 10 years. They've paid somebody for 10 years, yet they're still repeating the same patterns. They're triggered by the same things. Their life doesn't look different. And I'm in the business of helping people to grow, which is different than helping people to learn. I've learned that the hard way too. Some people who love to learn come to me and then they just listen. And that's very different. And growth takes courage. And I want to work with those who actually want to grow, because what's on the other side feels a lot more free, a lot more joy. You actually love and respect yourself on a whole new level. And I do that through many different ways.
Wow, you said so many amazing things here. First of all, it sounds like you're the original happiness coach. And so that's a really good alignment with what we're talking about. And you're right. I mean, a lot of people get really upset when you say their pain is in their head, but that doesn't mean that they're imagining the pain. It's just that our neuroreceptors are in our brain. And so when our neuroreceptors are in our brain, the healing and not the cure, but the solution is our mind and what we're doing, because when we're stressed, when we're tense, our body tenses, and so our pain intensifies. So the solution is on changing our thinking and changing the repressed emotions, changing that, working on that rage. And you can call it wounds. It could also be subconscious programming. A lot of us are operating from a programming that was done before the age of 7, and we're still subconsciously responding as if we're 7 and younger, because we never actually took the time to change that subconscious programming. And a lot of us don't have access to the subconscious mind. We're always thinking that whatever we're thinking, that's where it is, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. Below is a huge chunk of thoughts and programming and emotions that we never touch. And so we're constantly responding and reacting. And I like that you're addressing all that and letting people know that it's way more than just what you're feeling physically. There's a whole other story behind it.
Well, thoughts are things, thoughts are energy, right? And they create a response. And I have a client who has had back pain for a while. And I said, okay, read these books. And then back pain went away. And then last week she got on a Marco Polo in the group and she said she watched the scenario happen where she had a fight with somebody or something. And all of a sudden, boom, she had back pain and she went, oh, and then she addressed it. And the next morning it was gone. My partner happened with his truck. His truck broke down on the side of the road, my fiance. And what happened? Boom, back pain. And he had to laugh because it was instant and he did nothing. There was no physical, he didn't bend over. He didn't pick something up. It just happened. But he also had years of chronic back pain before I met him, because it was also not just repressed rage, but a lot for him, I'm going to say sadness and fear of feeling unsafe in his relationship, feeling unsafe with his relationship with his dad. So, all kinds of stuff that was built up that was never really addressed. And so to me, if it's a physical problem, physical things help it and physical things make it go away. And not that, I, for the first time in ever, pulled my back maybe at the beginning of January. And there were very specific things that happened. And it was a physical thing. I'm sure there were some emotions to it also, but I did a couple different physical things and it went away. It's not chronic. But when people have chronic years and years and years, and they go to the chiropractor and the acupuncturist and physical therapy and it doesn't go away, it's probably not a physical issue.
It's not just back pain. For years, I used to suffer from sore throats, a lot of sore throats. And once I made the connection that I didn't feel safe speaking up, and once I started speaking up more, my sore throats went away. So there's different organs, I used to have a lot of built up rage as well. And that led to reproductive issues. And so knowing that there is a connection with our emotions to our physical symptoms, that's my goal as a holistic psychologist, to integrate the mind and the body. We're not just isolated that your anxiety is only in your head and that's all that it's just a series of symptoms. There's so many things that are underneath it that we need to work on. So yeah, I do definitely agree with what you're saying. I know you talk a lot about the mother wounds, but also starting with self-love. I mean, you said your mom didn't love herself. And when you don't love yourself, you neglect yourself. When you neglect yourself, you end up having physical issues. You also are a fitness instructor and so are a specialist. And so all of that is connected. Can you just connect all of that and how it starts with self-love and how building more self-esteem and self-love can lead to so many changes in our lives?
Yeah, I think my mother does love herself to a certain degree. There are things she's really good about, certain boundaries. But self-care, and this goes, I think, to a lot of people. In fact, I just started a program. I have a program called Date Your Body, and we just started this year. In fact, tonight's our first call for the 3 months. And this has been my third time doing this program. And what I've noticed about women in particular is that we will spend money and time and energy helping other people, but we don't do it for ourselves until we have a disease or cancer, or we're getting divorced, or we're looking at making a major change. And, it's at what point do we value ourselves at a level that asks us to commit differently? And when it comes to seeing my mother and it wasn't just my mother, because my cousins, I think my female cousins also saw their mothers do it. We see the patterns and habits of how our models, our parents were. And then we say to ourselves, I don't want to be like that, or I want something different, or I want more for you. And if I want more for you, then I want more for me. So let me be the model for that. And for me, I always understood my brain does work differently. And I am an older soul than both of my parents. So let's just establish that, because not everyone sees things the same way or wants the same things. My parents are much more simple people. In fact, I interviewed them on my show at the end of the year. They were here for Christmas, my dad's first time, and it was really nice to have them. And I just asked them some very basic questions. But you can hear sort of that they're very simple people. They don't have a lot of depth. And I don't mean that in a mean way or a bad way. They're willing to have any kind of conversation with me, but they'll never start it and they won't think about it on their own. But I'm a unique one in that way. I was a little bit of a black sheep that I saw how things worked. My brain said, well, I have a choice of if I want to as a young child or as a teenager or even as a young adult, looking around at other women and seeing how they aged. And I mean that in three different ways. I mean that in the physical body. I mean that in their passion or energy about their life. And of course, in their relationships and how they fare. And so when I see someone who you can tell has not treated their body well, has not attended to themselves in a real, meaningful, deep kind of way, it makes people cranky. It's why, women and men get cranky when they get older, because they want things to stay the same, because they don't know how to shift and change and grow and evolve and expand. But it doesn't have to be like that. I have several in my community. I've got an 82-year-old, and she's doing better than she's ever done in her entire life. She did Date Your Body my first round a year and a half ago, and it was completely life-changing for her. It gave her more confidence than she's ever had. And she's someone who used to act and be on stage, and she's a teacher. She's been in front of audiences, but it went from apologizing for taking up space to now she is has a major TikTok channel, and she's on TikTok every day, and she's writing books and she's publishing her books. And the attention to ourselves is a form of love. I wrote, my first book is called Fit to Love: How to Get Physically, Emotionally, and Spiritually Fit to Attract the Love of Your Life. And I wrote it because it was my story of how I attracted my husband at the time and love of my life. But the love of your life isn't another person. The love of your life is you. And until you make that connection, then we're performing for love. And that's disrespectful to ourselves. So I've combined and I've taken, Date Your Body came because I had all this knowledge as a trainer for 25 years, personal trainer, not fitness instructor. And I'm very specific in my application and knowledge of science, of all the sciences. So from biomechanics to exercise physiology and how to build muscle, from the study of nutrition and everything that goes into biochemistry, as well as the endocrine system and hormones. So I have a depth of knowledge in that area that I kind of put down when I started working on the emotions, because that excited me more. That to me was more meaningful. It was why we do what we do. It wasn't just doing things, because there's a difference of people that, and I see it, someone will compliment somebody who's literally addicted to how they look. And they'll say, oh, you're so healthy, you at the gym every day, but they won't see or feel that is an addiction to how they look, that their self-esteem is based on how they perform for others and how others perceive them. That's not healthy. That's not what I'm talking about. Fit to Love was the distinction of, am I doing this? What's driving my need or desire or motivation or my discipline to take care of myself? And mine was never, yes, there's always I want to look better, but ultimately I want to be better. I know that if I take care of my body now, it's an investment in my future. That if I take care of I build muscle and I maintain my muscle, which means I maintain my metabolism, I'm not going to go through menopause and gain a lot of weight. If I maintain my bone density by resistance training, I'm not going to break a hip. I know that if I have strength, that I'm going to be able to not get injured and still fully participate in life as I age. I'm not going to be having a cane or multiple surgeries or diabetes or all of these chronic diseases that people get because they think health is an event versus health as a habit. It's something you don't just have, it's something you work for, and you either pay attention to it or it creeps up, and then your future looks a mess and your body's breaking down and you're like, oh, aging isn't for the faint at heart. Right. Well, you didn't contribute anything to that. It's like investing. No one would expect somebody who has never ever saved a dime to be a millionaire when they retire. You have to start somewhere and start investing in order to have that result. But when it comes to our health, we don't take that into consideration. So as I started moving into the emotional work and the core wound work, and which I'm super passionate about, there's still the physical body and how we attend to it. Sometimes the way to heal an emotional wound, okay, so if you have a wound of abandonment, this happened with a client of mine who's a friend of mine. She's a healer. She's a very powerful healer. And she did a mastermind with me, but she never did really deep emotional work. We did some tapping on some deeper wounds for her, but she did my Date Your Body program. And it was a game changer because she's someone who, classic healer, rescuer, let me rescue everybody else, but not attend to myself. Well, Date Your Body made her attend to herself, which was so healing because she got to nurture herself by attending to her food, her exercise, her self-care, instead of always being outwardly focused on rescuing other people and trying to get love because of what she performed on others. She's also a nurse. That's huge for nurses, right? A lot of nurses have which I'm sure you know, and your audience probably knows, like a lot of nurses go into nursing because they wanted to rescue someone they couldn't rescue. A lot of nurses have alcoholic fathers. Like there's a whole psychology of why we choose what we do for a living based on our core wounds and what we need. So I kind of combined all that together and brought Date Your Body as one of the programs that I do, because it is your habits of how you are. So let me just back up a second for the core wound aspect. So abandonment. So my friend had worked on abandonment with 1 million people for 25 years. And it didn't shift. Why didn't it shift? Because she kept abandoning herself. Our moment to moment, well, yes, we have this rich subconscious, 88% of our mind is subconscious. The problem with focusing on just the subconscious is sometimes it doesn't change our interpretations. We still live in a world where our conscious brain has to look at something and interpret it. And until we change our interpretations of things, we don't change how we believe or how we act. So there's the inside out or the outside in. And I do a combination of both. They're both, everyone, how they process emotion is different. For me, as a Pisces with a Sag moon, when I looked at my core wound exercise the first time I did it, it changed my life in an instant. Because as a Sag moon, which is how you process emotion in astrology, Sag is about truth seeking. So when I saw a truth, I couldn't deny it. And my behavior changed instantly. Now, that's not everybody. Some people need different things and repetitive things and structure and different ways in order to take this concept and then make it embodied where they actually change what they do. So yeah, for me, self-care is an indicator of your relationship with your worth. And if you're not taking care of yourself, then you may not really love or respect yourself. Sometimes you may not understand it. But I think really self-care is just the first way that we show people how to treat us. We're the blueprint that says, this is how I love and value myself, which is either a lot or none at all. And then you attract people who repeat what you do because you're the example.
Yeah, I like how you look at self-care as an investment. Like a lot of people don't realize that doing squats will help you get off the toilet. For example, I like those videos that show that when I'm doing squats, when I'm in my 80s and 90s, I can actually get off the toilet or put stuff away. And that's why I'm lifting and a lot of women are so weak in their upper body and they don't realize they do need to lift weights because then they can actually lift things and put stuff away and just basic little things that we're investing so that when we're older, we're able to do those things and we don't become frail and disabled. And it's not about being a certain size. And I'm glad that you mentioned that because there are people that are obsessive about exercise and eating right to the point of starving themselves, to the point of being anorexic and having body dysmorphia and having all of these issues. And people are complimenting them and they get rewarded by that. So they never get to really focus on, am I doing things that are investing in my future or am I just focusing on being a certain size right now?
Right. And it's that, to me, the energy underneath. It's not about what you're doing. It's about the energy underneath what you're doing. While I work with a lot of people who've come out of recovery, because recovery doesn't actually get you to self-love. Recovery gets you to stop doing whatever behavior you were doing that got you into an addiction program in the first place. Because people will be 20 years sober and still be angry and not love themselves. And I had a gentleman who was dating one of my clients come to a live event, and he was game. He wasn't searching, but he showed up to the event to support her. And by the end of the weekend, he was like, "Oh my God, I realized I don't love myself." And I was like, hold on, I can help you. Can I help you? And he went, "Yes, please." I said, "Okay." So, his whole life changed in a year, year and a half, because of looking at his life differently and taking the moment to moment decisions that we make. Some people, like I said, for me, the Sag moon, looking at the core wound exercise and seeing the pattern so clearly was enough for me to change my life in certain ways. But for some people, it's not a big aha. It's the moment to moment decision making as we go through our day. It's as I have a client of mine. She's in her second year with me. She's done a bunch of programs, but she's doing the Date Your Body program. And today I heard her say, "Well, I don't really do protein shakes." And I thought, oh my God, here we go. Right. Because and she doesn't take care of her body at all. But we're starting the program. And so it'll be interesting to see, because there are some people who have a huge level of commitment of like, I'm going to do whatever you tell me to do. And I'm ready and willing. And one person who's repeating it because she got so much out of it last year. And then we have people who have all this resistance. So, the name of the game is how do I bridge and she's done the rewire program. So I have all her core wounds. So I know how to work with like how she thinks and how she approaches things and how to talk with her and how to deal with her. So when we're looking at, and I definitely have a gift for your audience if interested, as we were talking about it. I don't know if your audience is over the age of 40, but I pulled out a program from I dusted it off from years ago with a physician and a registered dietitian that I used to work with in their clinic. And it's called the Metabolic Makeover Program. And I'm happy to give it away. I'm happy to give it to your people. And has a whole bunch of great stuff in it, but it's addressing the 7 factors of weight loss resistance. When we come at something from, I care so much about what I look like. Well, why? Why do you care? Well, because other people will love me. Like, we don't understand the subconscious programming that says if I look good, people will love me more or give me more attention. And some of that was your parents and some of that is society. But back to the addiction piece, it can, like, I had a friend who she ended up at one point being addicted to cocaine. She got off of cocaine and now she's a bodybuilder. That is not healing. That is just switching out one addiction for another addiction. That does not mean I love myself by prostituting myself in front of people and hoping to get a prize because of the way that I look. Again, it's too shallow. It's still an addiction to something. It just now, rather than be a substance, it's to performing for love. So, I deal a lot with understanding. What I was saying about, I'm not a big like, yay, you're sober. I'm not saying that's fine. If you want to be sober, but it doesn't heal the issue. Most people go through these treatment programs, come out, and they don't do the thing, but now they have a control issue. So they're now addicted to control. They can't let go of control. And it doesn't solve the happiness or self-love issue. I realized last year, because it keeps like changing every year what I do with people, like I learn from their response to me and the work. Like that, when it comes down to it, what it's all boiled down to is I teach people how to love themselves, like really, truly love yourself at a level that nobody else does. I mean, maybe your parents do, but even more than that, because you have to live with you. And then the habits and patterns can come more naturally. You can commit to yourself more when you love yourself and you respect yourself. There's a cherishing that happens, and the energy of that is so different than exercising to perform to get love and attention from other people. And then devaluing yourself when you gain a few pounds or when you have some wrinkles or when your hair starts to turn gray. Now all of a sudden you're depressed because you hate yourself because you don't think you look perfect. Like that whole thing. Yeah. And I was in an industry for so long, in the fitness industry, and I couldn't articulate it for a long time. I was like, I don't love this industry. Like, I enjoy learning the science of the body and how to change the body. And I want to tend to myself. And I want to put in the time now. That means when I'm in my 60s, 70s, and 80s, I'm going to be a rock star, right? Like, I know that what I'm doing now is affecting my future, and that feels good for me. And it affects my now. So how do I get more people to do that versus get on a treadmill and then go, I hate myself. I hate myself. I hate this. I hate this. I hate this. And then just have this loathing. So the energy underneath is an episode that I did a couple of years ago. I interviewed somebody yesterday. I'm about ready to do my 800th episode on on Fit to Love. And she's been listening this whole time for over 10 years. And she said one of her favorite episodes, and across the board for most of my clients, one of their favorite episodes I've done is called The Energy Underneath. And that's what I'm talking about. It's that our actions about like working out is good, but not if it's fueled by self-loathing and fear. So I want people to have the better, positive, aligned, loving, supportive, nurturing energy about the choices they make. And so, no matter whether you drink or you don't drink, or like looking at why you did the drugs or why you did the drinking or why you're a control freak or because people are still having the addictive behaviors, but they're not questioning it. They're thinking, but it's not bad for me. Well, that could be depending on the situation. I don't look at a control addiction as a good thing, but I focus on self-love. I focus on the energy underneath. I focus on healing the wounds and uncovering the wounds, like you were talking about. Yeah, to me, those limiting beliefs are the wounds. They're the beliefs that get created, but we can pinpoint them into actual words and patterns. We can understand them much more clearly. I've created something called a core wound map, and the book will be out this year on that, and the new podcast will be out soon on that. And it's looking at the map of every time you get triggered, come back to here. Come back and see what the root cause of this was, instead of talking about what happened with your husband yesterday, which is not going to solve the root problem of what you have. It's just going to be temporary fixing of, and hopefully not asking people to be different so that you're happy. So I am root cause. I know your root cause, because that's what holistic is root cause. And I just want to make sure people understand that there are faster, easier ways to understand your root causes. So that way you can then choose therapies and things to do, and you can measure it, you can see it. And it's versus, is it working? A lot of people go through therapy and don't know that it's having any effect on them. Then it may not be working. If you're not different in the same situation, you're not healing. That is my quote that I made during COVID or before COVID. Healing, to me, this is my quote, is when you're different in the same situation. Because everybody can run away from a situation. You can get divorced, quit your job, and move, but you take you with you. Healing is when it changes on the inside, and that your circumstances don't necessarily have to change for you to heal and be different in the same situation.
Wow. That's, very true. And congratulations, 800 episodes. Wow, that's a lot.
That's just for one show. I have a whole network of shows, but that's just one show. I'm in the 500s for Spirit, Purpose, and Energy, and the 400s but Fit to Love was the origin.
Wow. You talk a lot about self-love. I talk about just loving your brain and loving your gut specifically, because that's where the neurochemicals are. They constantly talk to each other. And if we're not taking care of our gut microbiome and loving those little bacteria, the 3 pounds of microscopic bacteria, they're not doing their job of releasing the feel-good chemicals. If we're not loving our brain and we're poisoning it with toxins and not caring about what happens, your brain's not going to function the way it needs to function. And then we wonder and we beat ourselves up as to, why am I not doing what I'm supposed to do? Why am I not happy? Why am I not sleeping? Why am I not focused? Well, when we don't love our brain, we don't love our body, we don't love our gut bacteria, then it's like you take better care of your phone and your car because you see them as valuable than you do of your body. And we only get one of these, and we can always replace the car and the phone. So yeah, you mentioned a lot of really good things that are very aligned with what I'm always telling my patients, my online community. And you're right, holistic is all about integrating the mind and the body and getting to the root of the issues, and not just putting band-aids on the thing and hoping things are going to work. And I consider solutions like the GLP-1 drugs as a band-aid. And a lot of people they just want a pill. They just want a shot. They just want something quick without having to do the hard work. And it's the hard work that gives you the reward at the end of it. And so do you want to talk a little bit about that craze and how that's affecting people's self-love or their concept or who they are in a relationship?
Well, I think you just said it. It's a Band-Aid, and it's a shortcut that will have consequences. Every day I see some new, from eyesight to gut issues to cancer. I keep seeing new. And in fact, Dr. Davis and I did a podcast episode. So it's called Deceptive Diet Advice. I think that was the name of the episode that we talked about specifically these kind of drugs and what some of the side effects are and what they don't tell you and what they're going to do to you long term. Again, we don't know all the long term because they're new, but it is kind of skipping the process. There is a satisfaction. We are in my spiritual belief, we are here as creators to create a life experience and to expand into a next level of consciousness, which was going to require contrast. So that's going to mean something bad happening, something uncomfortable happening. And that is how we grow. We have a temperature gauge of what we all think we deserve. And that is also subconscious and not necessarily chosen. And even if we could choose it, we do mentally choose it. It's what I see with people with law of attraction. They all the time look at something and say, well, I want to attract something. Well, let's stretch and say someone says, I want to make $1 million next year, or I'm going to attract $1 million. But their subconscious doesn't actually believe that. And so what's going to happen is that they aren't going to do the things or be the energy that would actually attract the opportunities for that, because they think it's something the mindset piece. I really hate actually the word mindset, because it makes it sound simple. It makes it sound like, oh, well, just change your thoughts. Okay. Yeah, you can change your thoughts. Your conscious brain can try to change your thoughts again, white knuckle that control, against all of the programming, all of the 88 of your subconscious. And it's so easy. It's like, okay, your brain and your thoughts are attached to your feelings. And if we don't connect the feelings with the thoughts and we change how we feel and we change what we believe, we're not going to change the thoughts. You may try to change the thoughts but it's going to be short-lived. So when it comes to understanding that we all individually have a temperature gauge of how much love, success, joy, and abundance we think we deserve, and it is subconscious. And you'll notice because some people will attract things and then sabotage. They're good at bringing it to them, but they can't hold on to it. And so for me, when we're looking at the fastest path to something that is extreme and skips the steps, you will sabotage it in some way. There will be consequences to that. We are here to love ourselves, to learn, to grow. And if you're on a spiritual path, you only grow by contrast. You're only going to grow by looking, having the satisfaction of knowing that you healed, that you changed, that it wasn't a trick. It wasn't some magic voodoo pill that eventually is going to also have consequences on the backside. No one's going to feel proud of losing a lot of weight because they took that drug. Oh, I'm so proud of myself. Are you? Because the drug did it. You didn't. There's a certain sense of satisfaction and self-respect that someone has when they change their life, when they make better choices, when they love themselves, when they do that from a different place emotionally. So while, there are many different ways to lose weight quickly, and not all of them are healthy, most of them probably aren't, because you lose muscle when you lose weight really quickly. People are going to do it, but it's no different than them taking any other drug for any other thing. Like, let's talk about heart disease and heart issues. My dad had an issue last year, and I pulled out my personal trainer cape on, and I've been training my parents virtually every Monday because they don't do it on their own. And I said, well, I'll train you once a week. You'll get some cardio, get some resistance training, because he has a heart issue, but he takes blood pressure medication. And I said, you know why you take blood pressure medication? Because you don't strengthen your heart. You have to do something to strengthen your heart if we just let aging happen. So, right. So that, to me, most of these drugs they're shortcuts. You don't need to be on them. You're on them because you aren't willing to do the work to heal the body so that you don't need them. Right? Statins. Most people shouldn't be on a statin. They change those numbers. I have a doctor who's a researcher that I worked with a couple times, and she's been on the show several times. And she can tell you about the days when the healthy cholesterol numbers were between 200 and 300. And now they reduce them. Why? So they can sell you a statin. So if you're on a statin, it's not a healthy thing. And you need your cholesterol to make your hormones. So if you have less cholesterol, you become brittle and you age faster. So I think pharmaceutical drugs, all of them, are temporary band-aids and some of them may be needed to transition from one place to another place temporarily, but no one's teaching people how to get off them, or what do I need to heal within my body in order for me to be back to optimal. And so whether it be the GLP-1 drugs or heart drugs and medications. I mean, I have a neighbor who's on 4 different heart medications. I said, but she doesn't take care of herself. She sits in her chair all day. She doesn't walk around or strengthen her heart. So I look at pharmaceuticals as a Band-Aid and not a fix-it, and not even a Band-Aid that covers the wound, but a Band-Aid that ignores the wound. So if you're someone who wants long-term success, I think I saw Oprah do a little video somewhere that basically said that if she doesn't always hike every day and she gets off the drug or something, and then she gains the weight back. And I was like, yeah, newsflash. But this is someone who struggled her whole life with weight and acceptance. I think while I love her in many ways, she's not necessarily the best model for self-love or self-care, because she's making skinny be healthy or skinny be popular when she's been many, many different sizes and hugely successful. One has nothing to do with the other. So learning how to be comfortable in your own skin, learning how to love and respect yourself and make healthy choices, and understanding the risks, no matter what you're doing or taking. How does this help me? What potential risks are involved with this? And if you can't claim that the doctor didn't tell you. You are in charge of your health. You are the one you are saying yes. So take the responsibility of understanding what you're putting in your body, learn a little bit, ask some questions, and then ask, is there a better way? Is this what I want to be doing? And maybe it is. And that if that's you, that's cool. I don't care. It's not my life. But I know for me, I want the cleanest possible system that I have, because taking pharmaceuticals and these drugs will all have some kind of kidney or liver or gut damage instantly or over time. And that will all lead to brain issues. And then you're going to be worse off than when you started. So don't go for the quick fix, go for the longevity and what feels like a really clean, holistic, grounded, well thought out, well cared for system and structure that is going to serve you forever and won't hurt you.
Yeah, I mean, they say there's a pill for every ill, and yet we're the sickest country. I mean, we have more illnesses now than ever. And when it comes to mental health, there are so many anti-anxiety medications, and yet nobody is getting cured from their anxiety. It continues to be the number one disorder in the world. And people like me wouldn't exist if the pill took care of our depression and our anxiety. And all we have to do is take a pill and we'll be happy. The joy and the cure is in doing the work, and it takes work, and it isn't easy. It might be simple, but it isn't easy. Reprogramming your subconscious mind that has been programmed at such a young age, and you don't have access to exactly what's driving you, takes time. It takes effort, but there's so much payoff at the end of it. And so I'm glad that you're working on stuff like that, and that there are people that are focused on giving people solutions that are not just Band-Aids and going to the root issues, because the Band-Aid solutions are only going to make you feel good in the moment, but you're still stuck with you. And no matter where you go, there you are. And the problems will never go away. And you can blame the world. You can blame your doctors. You can blame stress. But at the end of the day, the solution is within you, and you have the power to change. So what are some small sustainable changes that people can make this month to support both their self-care and their relationships, just to bring it all back together? And I know you address all three, like the spiritual, the physical, as well as the personal relationships we have. So what are some things that people can do?
Let me start off by giving you two different, well, one's a gift and the other one's like a tool, but I have to explain the tool so you know what to do with it. Otherwise, it doesn't mean anything to you. So the gift is called the Metabolic Makeover Program, and that is at jjflizanes.com/MM. And you can get this Metabolic Makeover Program. But it is a comprehensive audio and video program that goes through the 7 factors of weight loss resistance. And it's looking at things like your blood. Like I have a continuous glucose monitor on right now. It looks at blood sugar. It looks at your hormones. It looks at your age. It looks at your everything from hormones to diet to exercise and beyond, mindset and nervous system, and why your body won't change or release if you think you're doing all the right things. And as we age from 40 up, especially as your hormones start to change, so does your programming. So that's the gift for everybody physically, jjflizanes.com/MM, the Metabolic Makeover Program. And then that you can spend a lot of time with and learn a lot of things. All right. Now on the emotional side, this work comes from Dr. Marshall Rosenberg, who wrote Nonviolent Communication. And simply, I never loved the name of that book. It took me a long time to read it because I resisted it because I didn't want to see myself as a violent communicator. I don't think people self-identify unless you're fighting with people. And then you're like, oh, this is violent, right? But actually, we all have violent communications. The minute we say should is like the most violent word we use, and we use it on ourselves all the time. So I would remove should from your vocabulary with yourself and others, and think about, pause, and learn to say, instead of say I should exercise, say I want to exercise. I would like to want to exercise. If you don't want to exercise, you can say, well, I would like to want to exercise. It would be wise of me to exercise. It would be proactive of me to exercise. But when you say should, you shame yourself. So the first thing is pull should out, of your vocabulary. And you definitely don't want to should other people either. That's bad because it's shaming them. It's saying you have no choice. But this nonviolent communication, there was an exercise, and I've taken a couple different trainings with them over the years, and I saw how they were using it, and it is very impactful to teach people how to listen differently. But what I noticed is that people were focusing on teaching people to listen differently for feelings and needs of others underneath the chaos and the story and the problem. But most people can't even identify their own feelings and needs. So I teach it the reverse way first. So it's a feelings and needs list. And you can get this at jjflizanes.com/feelings list. But I need to explain how to use it. Otherwise, you can't find it on my website because it's hidden, because I don't want people to get it because you don't know what to do with it. So anytime you have, and this is beyond core wounds. In fact, in my Rewire program right now, yesterday we had our third call of the year. And I said, this is our last focus on solely this work, because past this, now we're going to be doing core wound stuff for the rest of the time with all other kinds of frameworks. But I don't want them to lose the idea that no matter what your astrology is, your birth order, your love language, your core wounds are, this exercise is how you're going to handle any trigger moment or any problem that you're having. Let's say you're having a situation. Now, you're only going to do this exercise mostly if you are having a negative experience. I did have a client last year in my Rewire who did it in reverse. She was just happy and she thought, why am I so happy? She did it in reverse to find out why she was so happy so she could repeat it. It was brilliant. But most people are not going to do this unless you're having a negative emotion. And what a negative emotion means every single time is that you have a need that is not being met, or the perception of a need. That's air quotes for anyone who's listening versus watching. If you have a perception of a need not being met, I will give you an example. I had a client who was, she had contacted me because she possibly wanted to get divorced. There was infidelity and she was thinking about leaving her husband. And she worked with me for a little while, did a bunch of programs and some mastermind. And during one of the live events, I had focused on love language. So her love language was touch and quality time. Her husband's love language was acts of service. And I forget what his second one was, but it was definitely acts of service. And so it wasn't until she could actually identify all of the ways in which he was giving her love every single day. She had a whole story going on in her mind about how he didn't love her because he wasn't touching her more. Well, and there was some trauma there too. But still, it was to her, the only way to receive love was through touch. So she was misinterpreting all of the other behavior that wasn't her preferred love language. So even though she has a need that's not being met, yes, she isn't being touched. That's a misinterpretation of that she actually is getting love. She's just not getting it in the way that she would like it, or the way that is easy for her to see and feel sort of right away. So when we could see all the patterns of how much he loved her, how much he did for her, how much he cooked and bought all the groceries and packed her lunches. And I mean, it was like ridiculous how much he was attending to her. I'm like, oh my God, he loves you so much. She couldn't feel the love because of the way she was interpreting the situation based on the framework of love language. So when we have a negative emotion, it's because we have, again, a feeling or a perception of that we're not getting a need met. So first we start off with identifying. Step one is to look at the feelings. And I recommend that you download this piece of paper, print 30 copies of it, put one on your desk, put one in your bag, put one in your car, put one in the bathroom, put one on the refrigerator, so that anytime you're having a negative emotion, instead of starting to make a story up or blame somebody else for it or yell at somebody because they did something to hurt your feelings, quote unquote, stop and look at the list and take responsibility for what's going on with you, so you can be clear about how to fix the problem instead of just getting upset and blaming somebody and starting a confrontation. So you start with, how do I feel? What is the feeling that I'm having right now? And it could be many. And I'm going to give you a short story example so that I can walk you through this. Years ago, I started a mastermind program that was free because it was a test. It was a test to use law of attraction within all aspects of our lives. And I invited a bunch of different people to participate. And we did it for about a year in person, every month, once a month. And it was going really well. And people were changing and growing different aspects of their life. And so I wanted to take it to the next level, still free. And I wanted us to get together in person and do like a whiteboarding all day session where we could actually like see on paper or on a whiteboard, like whatever problem you're dealing with, like how could we map it out, right? So it could become visual. So it could become easier to see the thoughts and like the vision board, if you will, or the mind map. And there was a couple that was in the group, and the husband was like, oh yeah, that sounds great. And the wife said, I don't know if that's the best use of our time. And I thought to myself, what do you mean? It's free. What have you ever done it before? No, but I don't know. That's like a lot of time. And, we're really busy. And I thought, oh my God, are you kidding me? So I come home and I got an email confirmation that basically said, yeah, we don't really think this is a good use of our time. And I was really, really impacted by that. So I went to the feelings and needs list because my ex-husband didn't like her. So he wanted to make it about her. Oh, we don't like her. She's blah, blah, blah. And I said, it's not about her. Let me say a statement so that you all really get that. It's never about the other person. Whatever you're upset about, it's never, even if it's somebody did something directly to you, it's never about the other person. These are where your wounds, because someone's action towards you could be the same action towards someone else, but you have different responses. And you have different responses because you have different beliefs. So, all right. So the feeling. So I went to the feelings list and I was frustrated. I was sad. I was curious. I was definitely curious because I'm like, why? I just didn't understand. All right. So I figured out my feelings. Then I went to the needs. So I'm thinking, I have no idea. What are my needs here? And I didn't know, which is why I want everyone to print many copies and go through this. And even as an exercise, which would be super powerful for you, forget being in a negative emotion. Just download this list and literally circle every single need in your life that is currently not being met, with no story, with no trigger. Just any need that you want to have met that isn't. And I say that because on here is beauty. So someone that doesn't value beauty, well, if you don't have beauty, don't circle it. Just look at the list and in your brain, in your body, go, okay, so I'm going to read this list and anything that makes you go, yeah, I'm not really getting that, like acknowledgement, awareness, beauty, celebration, clarity. So this is what I did in this situation because I didn't know what my need was. Why does it bother me so much that they don't want to do this? It's free. And someone might say, well, you feel rejected. Well, rejected is not a feeling. Rejected is an interpretation. So what are the facts? The facts are that I feel sad and frustrated and fearful and whatever else I felt at the time. And then I looked through the needs and I got to, and I'll read down. So clarity, closure, competence, contribution. Contribution. I have a need for contribution. And in that moment, I realized, oh my God, I have a need for contribution. And I want to do this with other people. And I want to serve myself and others through this. And that felt really good and new because I couldn't identify it. So step one is, what are the feelings? Step two is, what need is not being met that's creating the feeling. Step three is, what strategies can I take to get the need met? And most important part, that do not require anyone else to be different. Let me say that again. Step three, what strategies, more than one, can I take to get the need met that does not require anyone else to be different? So in that moment, I went from frustrated and sad, and because my need for contribution, I realized, well, screw them. I can go give it to other people. Why am I trying to make them do this? They're not interested, but I'm sure I know I can find more people that are interested. So I solved the problem. I understood what my need was, and I empowered myself to get my need met. Too often we are manipulating others every day to get our needs met because we don't know what they are. We don't know what our needs are, and we don't know how to get our needs met. So jjflizanes.com/feelings list. Start with identifying the needs that are not being met in your life, or the perception of the needs. Don't blame everybody for not getting your needs met. And then start with, well, which is the biggest one, and how can I ask others to either contribute, or how can I get my needs met that don't require anyone else to be different?
Yeah, I love that, because even me as a psychologist working with people, I don't have the power to change anyone, and neither do the rest of us. And so we need to focus on accountability and focusing on how can we get our needs met without focusing all of our energy, and I have to change him or her to make me happy, when really that's our responsibility. And that's why my focus for this year is that through the Happiness Project is for us to increase happiness in our lives and not expect other people to make us happy, because that's just not going to work. And I thank you for the gifts. I will definitely add your links to the show notes. And I really appreciate you offering that to the listeners. So let us know, where can people find you and connect with you?
jjflizanes.com has everything, links to the podcasts. It's got social media. It's got information about programs and courses and things that I have. So jjflizanes.com.
All right. Well, we'll definitely add all of that to the show notes. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your wisdom and all the work you're doing. And I'm really grateful for you being here.
Thank you so much for having me. Looking forward to talking again.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to follow and subscribe to the Mental Health Break podcast. It would really help us get discovered by others if you do. And now you can text us directly and share your thoughts with us about this episode. If you're interested in joining the Happiness Project, visit drsicandri.com/happiness-project. Until next time.